So, what are GCSEs? Maybe a stupid question to ask for a lost review, but here I'm just going to describe the overall things that are part of the GCSEs. And then, yes, let's go. Good evening. Welcome to my channel then. Today I'm going to go through GCSEs as I've said in the intro. So GC it's just a small information videos, so you get something nice out of it. So GCSEs are just compulsory exams in the UK that children take one between the age range of 15 to 16. So in England you got year 11 if I'm correct, and then if it's the equivalent for any other areas, so like etc etc. So then it consists of 6 compulsory subjects, which are maths with English literature, English language, and then the 3 sciences biology, chemistry, and maths. And then it will usually you will have 4 other subjects, which can range a lot from history, geography, modern foreign languages like French, etc., and then other minor subjects such as sociology, religious studies, citizenship, business, etc. And the amount of exams you have is usually between around 20 exams, which you have to do in the month of May during the end of year 11. So for maths you will have 3 exams, for English literature and language you will have 2 exams each, so you get 4 in total. And then for each of the sciences you have 2 exams. So overall you will have 13 exams for just the 6 compulsory subjects, and then the other subjects you will most likely have at least 8 exams between them. If you follow the EBAC pathway, which is just a fancy way for an extra qualification, you will have to probably take either history or geography, and then either French or Spanish if that's the only things your school offer, which in itself is about 7 extra exams. So you will have 2 extra exams. And then overall it will just work out to at least above 20 exams. So pretty much the most stressful time in your life. Funnily enough, we think that A levels university exams are the most stressful, but in reality GCSE is probably the most life changing, because if you don't get good GCSEs, then your options are usually severely limited in terms of where you can go for A levels. And then A levels, you need to have some form of A levels in order to get qualifications. And then they're putting all of that stress. 20 exams, the first type of exams you're doing, because case 2 SATs, that they don't count as exams, it's just the. So 20 exams, and you're giving it to a 15 to 16-year-old who just doesn't care about them, which is just hilarious. The school system has an absolute flaw in it. So GCSEs can be essentially split up into 3 parts for most subjects. So then the first part of the GCSEs is the easy part, the recall question part. So essentially recall questions are just questions that require you to regurgitate information and just apply it onto your paper, whereas essentially you can memorize something out of the textbook and that will be what comes in the exam as they ask you. So for example, in GCSE physics maybe you could have a question which is just like, why does the mass remain the same in a closed system during a reaction? And then and if you want to do that you can pause and then answer it, but the answer will be around that due to the law of conservation of mass, no mass will be created or destroyed during a reaction. So that's essentially the easy parts, which is usually graded between 1 to 3. So that's the level you will be achieving if you find that difficult. Then the next part is part 2, is essentially the mid section of the exam. So it takes up the bulk of the exam, around 60% I would say. And then it also is just it's being able to find it's being able to apply your knowledge to certain scenarios, which is just like, it's essentially active recall. So you need to be able to create links with what the question is asking and what you need to say. So you will have learned this as well, but you just have to think a little bit more. So for example, you could say in GCSE chemistry, what is the concentration of sodium hydroxide if 50 centimeters cube of sodium hydroxide is used to neutralize 100 centimeters cube of hydrochloric acid, which has a concentration of 1 mole per decimeter cube. So if you want to pause again to work that out, if you want to, then yeah, sure. But if you don't want to, then pretty much the answer is 2 moles per decimeter cube, due to the molar ratio being equal and all of that, etc. Is if you come to A level chemistry, you'll do these in your head so fast that you're gonna laugh at your GCSE self if you about struggling on those. But then again, it's just standard mid of the range questions in the second part, and this is what you will mostly get your marks on. So if you're not like 100% achiever, then if you've at least got the basics down, so like grade 4 to 6, etc., you've got this part of the paper down, you should be able to score decently well and get at least a 6 or maybe a 7. So overall, you're not going to do badly if you do this. Now the third part is the most challenging part, which is pure application. So what is application? Application is essentially in being able to interpret scenarios, and then you have already learned all the information you need to answer it, but it's up to you to figure out what the question is asking and thus answer that. So let's take for example in GCSE biology, you've got some random thing about a practical for proteases, seeing enzyme activity, the effect of enzyme activity on temperature, and then you're using proteases and you're digesting a bunch of protein. So for example, pepsin. So the question might ask you that hydrochloric acid is added into this solution of proteases and proteins. Why is it added? Now if you want to pause to do that, so the answer to that question is essentially just allow the protease to work at the optimal temperature. Because if you have learned in GCSE biology, pepsin, for example, the protein found in stomach acid, it works best at a low pH. So adding hydrochloric acid will essentially just allow you to get those optimal conditions so that rate of reaction is completely fine. Or you could have another question about like just anything that is designed to challenge you, and this is the part where most students drop marks, since they either don't understand the question or they misinterpret the question, which is something that will just lose you marks, since misinterpreting is worse than not completely understanding it, since you could either get full marks or 0 marks, and 0 is not a nice number. And that's pretty much it. I'll elaborate on this more in my new series to come, and it'll just be about the sciences, it'll be about maybe a bit of maths, so like easy parts of maths, but I will definitely include biology, chemistry and physics inside this, and it will be a series that is just essentially going to dictate what you need to know for the mark scheme specifically, since you don't get a topic list in GCSE. You have to memorize everything and hope that something that you're good at comes up, because if something that you're bad at comes up and you didn't revise for it, you're going to lose marks. They can't include everything in the paper. So yeah, obligatory. Hope you subscribe, like the video, share it so that other people can see it, because my goal is to help lots of people. And let's hope I can show you the thing next week, what the mark scheme says, because life is life.